Assalamu alaikum. Azhar, do you want to do it then?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Ashhadu an la ilaha
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Ashhadu an la
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
Ashhadu an la
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
Allah.
لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما قال الله تعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا ولقد جاءتهم رسلنا بالبينات ثم إن كثيرا منهم بعد ذلك في الأرض مسرفون. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah Azza wa Jal, Lord of the worlds, and we ask Him to send His greatest peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon his family and his companions, and upon all the believers until the Day of Judgment, Ya Rabbil Alameen. When we spoke last week about the concept of forgiveness and how as far as you can take sin, Allah will meet you with the like of it or more with mercy. But there's a second aspect to forgiveness that's often not talked about, which is redemption with yourself and redemption in the eyes of society. I gave an example to the youth group of the type of forgiveness we're talking about here, because sometimes it's hard to imagine it until you give an example. Picture someone you find reprehensible, someone who has always and has been fighting Muslims and fighting Islam for the last 4 years. Immediately, you're probably thinking, the ex-president of the United States. Now imagine tomorrow he became Muslim. Firstly, not only would you all be shocked, but the idea of him even becoming Muslim is very alien to you. There's no way he's going to be or become a Muslim. But even then, if he's to become Muslim, there's forgiveness in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal, but then there's an amount of redemption that he has to do in the eyes of the people. Reaping back and bringing back the people he previously lost the trust of, to perhaps try and win them over. It's not to necessarily speak about an individual, but it's trying to create an image of the story that we're going to talk about today. A story which I ended the khutbah last week on, and which we're going to pick up today and continuing. It's a story of a man who killed 99 people. Now what's amazing about this story is how Allah outlines the path of redemption for somebody who commits a sin. and how even the greatest of sin, Allah can forgive it. In the verse I recited, Allah Azza wa Jal, intrinsically within the verse itself in the Quran, He says, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul except for in the rights, or except for a soul that's been killed or for corruption in the land, is as if he has killed the whole of mankind. And whoever saves one is as if he has saved mankind entirely. Even within the verse itself, you find Allah Azza wa Jal not only outlining the sin and the corruption the sin can cause, but He immediately outlines the way of redemption. How do you make yourself back acceptable to society, and how do you begin that path in paving your way back to Allah and paving your way back to being accepted amongst your peers? If you kill someone, as unforgivable as that is, you can try and put forward something equivalent to it, which is to save people's lives. That perhaps those people who previously hated you might begin to think, he's turning his life around. The man who killed 100 people, or 99 people, what's incredible about his story is the way and the psychology behind someone who sins. The Prophet ﷺ gives a real example to a problem that all of us face, which is this desire to change but the struggle to do so. How many times would someone be smoking, looking at you and say, smoking's bad, don't do it, and then take a puff? Or how many times would someone tell their children not to lie, and then later that day, they will lie about something? Whether it's not feeling good enough to go to the shops, like a white lie as they call it, or something bigger. And you will know that thing is wrong, but it's difficult to change. And this hadith speaks specifically about that psychology, about how we wish to change ourselves, but change is not something that happens instantly, and it's often a very difficult journey. So this man killed 99 people, and in seeking redemption, went to who someone he thought was a pious man. Note the word piety. Because he went to a man who prays 5 times a day, he perhaps has a long beard, he dresses in your ideal religious setting. In fact, he's described as a monk. He's given his life to worshipping Allah. But this man, as pious as he is, had no knowledge. And when you're pious with no knowledge, you can be dangerous if you give knowledge that you don't have. So him, in seeing his life as one that he's trying to get redemption from, meets someone who's given his life entirely for the sake of Allah. This man who hasn't learnt and thought the only way to Allah is to give your life, to sacrifice and worship Allah, saw there's no path back for him. And when you take hope away from people, you take everything away from them. And he saw no reason to keep this man alive, and he decided, let's make these 100 people to kill. And we spoke last week of the dangers of people who are pious, who are outwardly religious, who look the part, but they speak completely falsehood. We call them con men in the West. And then he went to someone who was truly religious, and he pointed him to something that's essential to the path of redemption, which is you have to change in a small incremental way. You can't do something suddenly. It's not going to overnight be changed, but you have to change something in your place. And the first thing you have to change in order to stop something bad is to change the environment in which you're in. If there's a food problem in your house and food is prominent in your face, you're always going to be eating it. If exercise is a problem and you're not making exercise, you need to facilitate for that to happen. He guided him to the smallest thing that he can do, which is just move from one place to another. Begin that journey. And what's most interesting about this hadith is the following 3 points, which we'll finish on. The first is that this person didn't complete his journey. He only started it. But that was enough for Allah to forgive him. But the second, which is the more profound thing, which is to link with the idea of redemption, this man didn't even complete his journey. But yet Allah Azza wa Jal redeemed him to such a level that almost every child and every person knows this man's story. His forgiveness was sincere, even if he didn't actually succeed in completing the act. So when you're struggling with something and you want redemption in the eyes of people, just the beginning of it is enough for Allah to raise your status. Till this day, we call upon this man who killed 100 people as some kind of hero. The entire script has been changed because of him turning to Allah. And the third is to remember that no matter how much a sin dominates your life, you should always have hope that you can change it. And that hope alone, that single hope on string that you believe you can change, will be enough for Allah to forgive you, inshaAllah. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive all of the sins that we have done and to allow us to turn back to you in the path of redemption and allow us to be raised in our eyes and in the eyes of your creation, Ya Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله إلى الصلاة إلى الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
دامت لا إله إلا الله سيدنا محمد رسول الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Inshallah, if you can abide by the stricter rules, inshallah, today. So let the last row leave first, and then the one after, the one after. Don't hang around outside, inshallah, and pray your sunnahs at home. Please wait for your turn, just to manage the load, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.